I backed out of the family vacation. My sister expected me to babysit her kids again. I vanished at the airport. The next morning, my phone exploded with "You ruined everything." My name is Brianna, though honestly, I'm not sure anyone in my family bothered to remember that most days. I grew up in what you'd call a textbook suburban household in Riverside, California. Mom, Dad, and my older sister, Erica. Erica was 9 years older than me, and let me tell you, those 9 years might as well have been a century in terms of how our parents treated us. From my earliest memories, our house was basically the Erica show. Every surface had a photograph of her, first ballet recital, spelling bee trophy, that god-awful pottery project she made in 3rd grade that Mom displayed like it belonged in the Smithsonian. Me? I was scenery. Background noise. The understudy who never got called to the stage. I got used to wearing Erica's hammer-downs, playing with toys she'd abandoned years ago. The pink bicycle with the wobbly wheel. The Barbie dolls with the chopped-off hair. It wasn't ideal, but when you don't know any different, you just adapt. I learned early on to be quiet, to not make waves, to exist in the spaces between everyone else's needs. The pattern continued as the years rolled by. Erica got new clothes from Nordstrom. I got hers when she tired of them. She got the latest iPhone. I got her old one with the cracked screen. But I never complained. Complaining meant attention, and attention in my family was rarely the good kind. High school came and went in a blur. By then, Erica had moved out, heading to UCLA on a full academic scholarship. I thought maybe, just maybe, with her gone, my parents would finally see me. Actually see me. But no. It was all about Erica's college adventures, Erica's internship at some fancy marketing firm, Erica's fabulous apartment in Santa Monica. Then came the announcement that changed everything. Erica burst through the front door on a sunny Saturday afternoon, practically glowing with excitement. "Mom, Dad," she squealed, "I'm engaged. Derek proposed last night at the Getty Museum." You'd think she'd just announced she'd found the cure for cancer. Mom dissolved into tears. Dad started whooping and pulling out his phone to call every relative in the state. Me? I sat on the couch, clutching my biology textbook, wondering if anyone remembered I was in the room. Erica turned to me, her eyes sparkling with tears. "And Brianna, you'll be my maid of honor, right?" I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. "Sure, Vic. Congratulations." As they all embraced and cried and laughed, I quietly slipped upstairs to my room. No one noticed. They never did. Erica's wedding became the sole focus of our household for the next year. And when I say sole focus, I mean it consumed everything. One night, about 6 months into the planning, I came home from my shift at Target to find Mom and Dad hunched over the kitchen table, surrounded by papers. Their voices were low, tense. "We'll need to take out a second mortgage," Dad was saying, his hand running through his thinning hair. "The venue alone is $40,000. Mom sighed heavily. "I know, Thomas. But it's Erica's special day. We can't disappoint her. She's only getting married once." I stood frozen in the doorway, my Target vest still on. A second mortgage. They were putting our house at risk for a wedding. I wanted to say something. To point out the insanity of going into massive debt for one day. But I knew better. My opinion had never mattered in this house. It wasn't about to start mattering now. The wedding was exactly what you'd expect. Lavish, picture-perfect, and entirely about Erica. She looked stunning in her $8,000 Vera Wang gown. Our parents beamed with pride as they walked her down the aisle of the country club they could barely afford. I stood there in my $300 bridesmaid dress, which I'd had to pay for myself, naturally, feeling like a prop in someone else's fairy tale. 3 months after the honeymoon in Bali, Erica dropped her next bombshell. "I've decided to be a stay-at-home wife," she announced over Sunday brunch at Mom and Dad's house. "Derek makes enough at his law firm for both of us. I don't need to work." I watched my parents' faces carefully. I could see the worry flickering behind their eyes. They'd just gone into serious debt for her wedding, and now she was giving up her income? But they plastered on their supportive smiles. "That's wonderful, sweetie," Mom said, reaching across to squeeze Erica's hand. "If that makes you happy, we support you completely." I stabbed at my armlet, biting back a dozen different responses. They'd mortgaged their house for her wedding, And now she wasn't even going to work? But I kept silent, pushing food around my plate while they discussed Erica's plans for redecorating her and Derek's condo in Newport Beach. 6 months later, Erica announced she was pregnant. With twins. I was working a closing shift at Target when I got the family group text, the one family group text I was actually included in. Mom had sent approximately 47 exclamation points along with the ultrasound photo. When I got home that night, I found Mom and Dad still awake, practically vibrating with excitement. Twins, Brianna. Dad kept saying, shaking his head in wonder. Can you believe it? We're going to have 2 grandchildren. I could believe it. I could also believe what came next. 2 weeks later, I overheard another kitchen table conversation. This time, I'd come downstairs for water around midnight and heard their voices drifting from the dining room. We should help them with a house, Mom was saying. That condo is too small for twins. There's a beautiful 4-bedroom in Costa Mesa, right near that good school district. We could cover the down payment, Dad agreed. It's about $60,000, but it's an investment in our grandchildren's future. I stood on the stairs, my blood running cold. $60,000. On top of the debt from the wedding. For a house for Erica and Derek, who had a combined income that was probably triple what my parents made. This time, I couldn't stay quiet. I walked into the dining room, still in my Target uniform. Are you serious right now? They both looked up, startled. Like they'd genuinely forgotten I lived there. Brianna, honey, Mom started, this doesn't concern. You're already drowning in debt from the wedding. I cut her off, my voice shaking. And now you want to give them $60,000 for a house? Erica's husband is a lawyer. They can afford their own house. Dad's face hardened. Brianna, this is what family does. We support each other. Support goes both ways, doesn't it? I shot back. Or does it only flow in one direction in this family? Mom stood up, her expression stern. That's enough. We are not discussing this with you. I left the room, my hands trembling. 2 months later, Erica and Derek moved into their new house in Costa Mesa. 4 bedrooms, a pool, and a mortgage my parents were making the down payment on. The twins, Cameron and Connor, were born on a Tuesday in March. Cute as buttons with Derek's dark hair and Erica's blue eyes. Mom and Dad were absolutely obsessed, spending every free moment at Erica's new house, cooing over the babies and posting approximately 1 million photos on Facebook. Meanwhile, I was finishing my senior year of high school, trying to figure out how the hell I was going to pay for college. One evening in April, I gathered my courage and approached my parents. They were, predictably, looking at photos of the twins on Mom's iPad. Hey, I started, sitting down across from them. I wanted to talk about college. Mom murmured, not looking up from a photo of Cameron's first smile. I got into UC Irvine and Cal State Fullerton, I continued. But I'm going to need help with tuition. The financial aid covers some of it, but we can give you about $8,000 a year, Dad interrupted, finally looking up. That should help. I blinked. $8,000? The tuition alone is $15,000 a year, not counting housing or. We'd love to give you more, sweetie, Mom cut in, but with the wedding loan and the house payment we are helping Erica with, that's what we can manage. You'll need to figure out the rest. Maybe scholarships? Student loans? Get a job. $8,000. Less than 20% of what the wedding had cost. Less than 15% of what they'd put down on Erica's house. Okay, I said quietly, my throat tight. Thanks. I ended up at Cal State Fullerton, the cheaper option, living at home and working 30 hours a week at a diner called Rose's Cafe to cover what my parents wouldn't. Between classes and work, I was pulling 16-hour days, stumbling home exhausted just to collapse into bed. That's when the babysitting started. The first time, I just finished a brutal Friday night shift at Rose's. My feet were killing me, I smelled like grease and coffee, and all I wanted was to faceplant into my bed. I walked in to find Erica in our living room, the twins, now almost 3, running circles around the coffee table. Oh thank God, Brie, Erica said, already grabbing her purse. I'm desperate for a break. Derek and I haven't had a date night in forever. You don't mind watching the boys for a few hours, right? Before I could even process what was happening, she was out the door, leaving me standing there in my stained roses uniform with two hyperactive toddlers. What the hell? I muttered, staring at Cameron and Connor as they screamed and chased each other. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Your sister works so hard taking care of those boys. This is what family does, Brianna. I work hard too, I protested. I just got off an 8-hour shift. I have homework. It'll be good practice for when you have your own children someday, Mom said, as if that settled it. It became a pattern. Every Friday, every Saturday, sometimes Sunday too. Erica would drop off the twins, citing exhaustion, or errands or date nights, and vanish. I'd end up sacrificing my already limited free time to chase two wild 3-year-olds around, while trying to finish calculus homework or study for exams. One Saturday, after a particularly brutal week of midterms, I'd had enough. Erica had just breezed out the door, leaving the twins mid-meltdown over God knows what. I turned to my parents, who were settled in the living room like this was completely normal. This isn't fair, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm exhausted. I work, I have a full course load, and now every weekend is gone too. When do I get to have a life? Dad barely glanced up from his newspaper. Your sister needs the help, Brianna. You should be grateful to spend time with your nephews. But what about what I need? My voice was rising now. I'm running myself into the ground here. Mom sighed, that disappointed sigh I'd heard so many times. Don't be selfish, Brianna. Erica has 2 children to take care of. You don't understand how hard that is. I gave up. There was no winning this argument. So I resigned myself to it. Classes during the week, work at night, unpaid babysitting on weekends. My social life became non-existent. Dating? Forget it. I barely had time to shower, let alone meet someone. The closest thing I had to friends were the other servers at Rose's and maybe 2 people from my study groups. By the time I turned 22, I was running on fumes. I'd graduated from Cal State Fullerton, no family at graduation, they'd been at some important event for the twins, and was working full-time as a junior account coordinator at a small advertising agency in Anaheim. The pay was decent enough that I'd moved into a tiny studio apartment in Garden Grove, finally having my own space. But Erica's demands hadn't stopped. She just had a 3rd child, a daughter named Sophia, and the babysitting requests had intensified. Now she needed help 3 or 4 times a week, not just weekends. I was at my breaking point. The constant juggling of work, my own life, and forced childcare had left me completely drained. I needed a break. A real one. So I made a decision. I found a cheap little beach motel in Oceanside, about an hour south. Nothing fancy, just a basic room with an ocean view for 3 nights. It was all I could afford, but it was mine. I'm taking a few days off, I announced to my parents during Sunday dinner. Going to the beach. To my shock, they seemed genuinely pleased. That's wonderful, honey. Mom exclaimed. You deserve a break. Where are you staying? I told them about the seaside motel in Oceanside. Basic, affordable, right on the beach. Dad actually smiled at me, a real smile, not his usual distracted nod. Good for you, kiddo. You work hard. You should recharge. I nearly fell out of my chair. Were they actually acknowledging me? Seeing me? For the first time in years, I felt a tiny flicker of hope. The day finally came. I packed my beat-up duffel bag, caught the Pacific Surfliner train south, and felt the tension melting away with every mile. When I finally reached Oceanside and saw the ocean stretching out endlessly, I could have cried. The motel was dated and small, but the ocean view was spectacular. I dropped my bag and went straight to the beach. The salty air filled my lungs, the sound of the waves washing over me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could actually breathe. I treated myself to fish tacos at a cute little beachside shack, savoring every bite. No screaming kids. No deadlines. No demanding sister. Just me, my thoughts, and the sound of the ocean. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I headed back to the motel, already planning a quiet evening of reading and maybe a long bath. But as I approached my room, I heard voices. Familiar voices. Surprise, Bree. I froze, my keycard halfway to the door. There, standing outside the room next to mine, were Mom, Erica, Derek, and all three kids, Cameron, Connor, and Sophia. What are you doing here? I stammered, my heart sinking into my stomach. We couldn't let you be alone on your vacation, Mom chirped, as if this made perfect sense. So we decided to make it a family trip. We got the room right next to yours. I noticed their luggage sitting outside one of the nicer rooms, the ones with the balcony and kitchenette. Of course they'd splurged on themselves while I was in the economy option. Before I could even process what was happening, Erica was steering the twins toward me. The boys have been so excited to see the ocean, she said. Derek and I are going to take a walk on the beach. You know, actually enjoy the sunset. You don't mind watching them for a bit, right? And I need to run to the grocery store, Mom added. We'll be back in an hour or two. Just like that, they were gone. All of them. Leaving me standing outside my motel room with three overexcited children tugging at my clothes and whining about being hungry. What followed was the worst 3 days of my life. The twins were completely out of control, hopped up on vacation excitement and unfamiliar surroundings. They tore through my small room like tornadoes. Cameron somehow managed to yank down the curtain rod, breaking it clean off the wall. Connor knocked over a lamp, shattering it into a dozen pieces. And Sophia, sweet little Sophia, decided to flush an entire apple down the toilet, completely clogging it. I had to pay for all the repairs out of my own pocket, money I didn't have to spare. The motel manager was understanding but firm. The damages were my responsibility since they were in my room. Between the curtain rod, the lamp, and the plumber's emergency visit, I was out nearly $400. Meanwhile, Erica and Derek were off having the time of their lives. They went to nice restaurants. They took sunset walks. They slept in. And every single time, I was expected to watch the kids. On the third morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. to Connor jumping on my bed, having let himself into my room somehow. I was more exhausted than I'd been before the vacation started. That afternoon, Erica had the audacity to complain about how tired she was from all the driving. I snapped. You're tired, I said, my voice shaking. You've been on vacation. I've been running around after your kids for 3 days straight. This was supposed to be my break. They're your nephews and niece, Erica shot back. Family helps family, Brianna. I'm always helping. I exploded. When do I get help? When does anyone in this family do anything for me? The argument escalated from there. Mom started crying. Erica went into her room and slammed the door. Dad tried to play peacemaker but ultimately took Erica's side, as always. I packed my stuff that night and caught the first train back to Garden Grove in the morning. As I watched the coastline disappear, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. This couldn't continue. Something had to change. But I had no idea that change was coming sooner than I thought, and from a completely unexpected direction. I dragged myself through my apartment door, exhaustion weighing down every muscle. But underneath the tiredness was something else now. Anger. Real, burning anger that I'd been pushing down for years. The next morning, I woke up with clarity. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I was halfway through packing a suitcase when my phone rang. Mom. Brianna, we need to talk about what happened at the beach. I can't do this anymore, I interrupted. There was a pause. What do you mean? I mean I'm done being the family's free babysitter. I'm done putting everyone else's needs before my own. I'm 25 years old and I don't have a life because I'm too busy living everyone else's. Brianna, that's ridiculous. I need space, Mom. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not just Erica's backup parent. The conversation went downhill from there. Mom called me selfish. Dad got on the phone and called me ungrateful, reminding me of everything they'd done for me, though he struggled to come up with specific examples beyond raising me. Erica sent me a string of texts calling me a terrible aunt. I stood my ground. I needed boundaries. I needed my own life. Things were tense for the next few months, but I stuck to it. I said no to babysitting requests. I went out with friends from work. I even started dating someone, a graphic designer named Alex I'd met at a coffee shop. Then came my 26th birthday. Mom called a week before. We want to do something special for your birthday. Come over for dinner. The whole family will be there. Against my better judgment, and Alex's advice, I agreed. When I arrived at my parents' house, it was a full production. Extended family was there, aunts, uncles, cousins I barely knew. Erica and Derek were there with the kids, now 7, and 4. Everyone was smiling, hugging me, wishing me happy birthday. I was suspicious, but I went along with it. Maybe they really were trying. The gifts came out. Clothes from Target. A generic coffee maker. A gift card to Olive Garden. Standard stuff. Then Mom handed me an envelope with a flourish. This is from all of us, she said, beaming. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a brochure and a printed itinerary for a beach resort in Mexico. 7 days, all-inclusive. We are all going. Dad announced proudly. The whole family. We've already paid for your trip. Flight, room, everything. My stomach dropped. A family vacation. 7 days. With the kids. I looked at Erica. She was grinning at me with that smile that meant she was already planning how much alone time she'd get while I watched Cameron, Connor, and Sophia. I don't know what to say, I managed. Just say thank you, Mom said, squeezing my arm a bit too tightly. We've been planning this for months. The party continued. People ate cake. Kids ran around screaming. And I sat there, holding this brochure, feeling the trap closing around me. After everyone else left, it was just us, me, Mom, Dad, Erica, and Derek. I'm not sure I can get the time off work, I started. Oh, don't worry about that, Erica said quickly. We already checked with your boss. She said it was fine. They'd called my boss. They'd gone behind my back to my boss. The boys are so excited, Erica continued. They keep talking about all the things Aunt Bree is going to do with them. The beach, the pool, building sandcastles. It was the ruined oceanside trip all over again. Except this time for a week. In another country. I opened my mouth to refuse. To tell them absolutely not. But Mom's hand tightened on my arm, her voice dropping low so only I could hear. Don't you dare make a scene. Not after we've spent all this money. So I smiled. I thanked them. And I screamed internally. But as I drove home that night, a plan started forming. A crazy, possibly relationship-destroying plan. But I was done. I was so, completely done. The next day, I went to a travel agent. I used the credit card I'd been paying off for months, the one I'd finally gotten down to a manageable balance, and I bought myself a ticket. Same dates as the family trip. But different destination. Tulum, Mexico. A small boutique hotel. No kids allowed. Just me. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not Erica. Not even Alex, though I hinted I might need some space to deal with family stuff. I just quietly got ready for what I knew would be the nuclear option. The day of departure arrived. I met my family at LAX, Terminal 5. Everyone was there. Mom, Dad, Erica, Derek, and the 3 kids. They were practically bouncing with excitement. Erica immediately started delegating. Okay, so Brianna, you'll sit with Cameron on the flight. He gets scared during takeoff. And you'll need to help with the kids' meals. You know how picky Connor is about his food touching. And during the trip, Derek and I were thinking we'd do dinners alone, so if you could watch them in the evenings. She was literally planning my entire week before we'd even checked in. Mom and Dad were nodding along, like this was all completely reasonable. We approached the check-in counters. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Oh, I said suddenly, pressing my hand to my stomach. I need to use the restroom. Bad. Something I ate. We're about to check in, Dad said. I'll be quick. Just check in for me, I'll meet you at the gate. I pressed my passport and boarding pass into Mom's hand and rushed off toward the bathroom signs. I watched them get in line, Erica wrangling the kids, Mom and Dad organizing everyone's documents. Then I turned and walked in the opposite direction. My hands were shaking as I approached a different counter. A different airline. Checking in for Tulum, I told the agent, handing over my real passport and ticket. 10 minutes later, I was through security. I found a quiet corner near my actual gate and pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling as I typed. "I'm not coming with you. I'm going on my own vacation. Enjoy your trip." I sent it to the family group chat and immediately powered off my phone. I could picture it perfectly. The chaos at the other counter when they realized I was gone. The angry phone calls. The absolute meltdown. Good. I boarded my flight to Tulum, ordered a glass of wine, and didn't look back. The moment the plane touched down in Tulum, I felt different. Lighter. Free. I checked into my hotel, a beautiful little boutique place right on the beach, adults only. As I unpacked, curiosity finally got the better of me. I turned my phone back on. It exploded. Literally hundreds of messages, missed calls, voicemails. I scrolled through some of them with a mixture of amusement and vindication. "How could you do this to US? Mom. You ruined everything, Erica. Your sister is in tears. The children are devastated. This is unforgivable. Dad." There were messages from aunts and uncles I barely knew, all telling me how selfish I was. Even some cousins had weighed in. I smiled, turned the phone back off, and locked it in the hotel safe. For the next 7 days, I was unreachable. And those 7 days were perfect. I lounged on pristine beaches. I read 3 entire books without interruption. I went snorkeling in cenotes. I took a cooking class and learned to make authentic mole. I went to beach clubs and danced until 2 a.m. I had drinks with other solo travelers. I went on a date with a marine biologist from Seattle named Jordan. No schedule. No responsibilities. No screaming children. Just me and the sound of the waves and the feeling of warm sand under my feet. All too soon, it was time to go home. I returned to Garden Grove tanned, rested, and more certain of myself than I'd been in years. But I knew the reckoning was waiting. It came the very next morning, pounding on my door at 8 a.m. I opened it to find Mom and Erica, faces red with fury. "How dare you?" Mom hissed, pushing past me into my apartment without invitation. Erica wasn't far behind. "Do you have any idea what you did?" The boys cried for 2 days straight. We had to watch them ourselves the entire trip. No downtime, no adult time, nothing. They launched into a tirade. I was selfish, ungrateful, a terrible daughter, a worse sister. I owed them for the ticket they'd bought. I owed them for the vacation I'd ruined. I owed them for the childcare I'd failed to provide. I let them rant for about 5 minutes, their words washing over me like water off a duck's back. Then I spoke, my voice calm and firm. "That's enough." They both stopped, shocked by my tone. "I don't owe you anything," I continued. "Not money. Not childcare. Not my time. I'm an adult and I get to make my own choices about my life." "After everything we've done for you," Mom started. "What, exactly, have you done for me?" I interrupted. "You gave me hand-me-downs my whole childhood. You paid for less than a quarter of my college education, while going into debt for Erica's wedding and house. You've expected me to provide free childcare for years, while having no respect for my time or my needs. So please, tell me, what have you done?" The silence was deafening. "I think you should leave," I said quietly. "When you're ready to treat me with respect and have an actual relationship with me, not just as Erica's backup, we can talk. Until then, I need space. If you kick us out now, don't expect us to be there when you need us," Mom said, her voice cold. "I've never expected you to be there," I replied. "You never have been." They left, slamming the door so hard my neighbor knocked to make sure I was okay. I stood there for a long moment, then let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 26 years. The next few weeks were hard. My parents tried calling a few times, always to guilt me, never to actually talk. Erica sent me a bill for childcare owed that I promptly deleted. Extended family members occasionally reached out to tell me I needed to apologize. I didn't. Instead, I made changes. Big ones. I went to therapy. Turns out I had a lot to unpack about growing up invisible and perpetually second best. I got promoted at work. Turned out when I wasn't exhausted from constant babysitting, I actually excelled at my job. I moved to a better apartment in Orange. Father from my family. Alex and I broke up. He didn't like how dramatic my family situation was, but I started dating again when I felt ready. I made real friends. The kind who valued my time and didn't just see me as free labor. 3 months after the airport incident, Erica tried to add me back to the family group chat. I left immediately. 6 months later, Mom called. "We are having Thanksgiving. Are you coming? Are you expecting me to watch the kids?" A pause. "Well, Erica needs help." Then no. I spent Thanksgiving with my friend Aisha and her family. They actually asked about my life. It was novel. A year later, Dad had a health scare. Erica called me, crying, expecting me to drop everything. I visited him in the hospital. But I didn't stay. I didn't put my life on hold. I called regularly to check in, but I maintained my boundaries. It's been 3 years now since the airport incident. My family and I have what you'd call a cordial relationship. We see each other occasionally at holidays, always with other people around. They've mostly stopped asking me to babysit, though Erica still sometimes tries to slip it in casually. I shut it down every time. I'm 29 now. I have a life I actually love. A job I'm good at where I just made senior account manager. An apartment I've decorated exactly how I want it. A friend group that feels like chosen family. And recently, I started dating someone new, a teacher named Chris who actually respects boundaries and thinks my family's behavior was absolutely insane. Sometimes I feel guilty. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have handled it differently. But then I remember that feeling of drowning, of being invisible, of having no life of my own. And I know I made the right choice. My family may never understand it. They may never forgive me for abandoning them at that airport. But I've forgiven myself for all the years I spent trying to earn love that was always conditional, always just out of reach. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday we'll have a healthier relationship. Maybe not. But I do know this. I'll face whatever comes on my own terms, standing tall in the life I've built for myself. And if that makes me selfish in their eyes, I can live with that. Because for the first time in my life, I'm actually living.